I never meant for it to happen. He was off limits, untouchable. But that night, while my partner was passed out downstairs, he came into my room, shut the door behind him, and looked at me like he already knew I wouldn't stop him. And he was right. What happened next changed everything. And no matter how wrong it was, I still can't bring myself to regret a single second of it. I hadn't always seen him that way. Aaron had been just a kid when I met him, a student I'd mentored years ago, all raw nerves and sharp edges. Back then, he barely spoke to me unless he had to, always quick to disappear after class. I respected his space. I never tried to push. I knew where the boundaries were. But boys grow up, and the man who showed up at my doorstep that summer wasn't the one I remembered. He was 20 now, taller, quieter, lean in a way that spoke of long runs and longer thoughts. There was something in the way he moved, calm, casual, like he'd grown into himself and didn't need permission from anyone anymore. His voice had changed too, lower, steadier, with a way of saying things that made you wonder what he really meant. And somewhere along the way, I'd started listening too closely. Aaron had come back because of James, my partner. The drinking had gotten worse. What used to be a bad night once in a while had turned into most nights. I told myself I was staying to keep the pieces from falling apart. But the truth was, I didn't know how to leave. I was sleeping next to someone who hadn't touched me in months, who slurred through dinner and forgot whole conversations by morning. So when Aaron showed up that weekend, duffel bag over his shoulder and that quiet, unreadable smile on his face, it felt like gravity had tilted. "Hey," he said when I opened the door. "Didn't know you were coming this early," I muttered. He shrugged, stepping past me. He stopped answering my texts, figured that meant it was time. He smelled like airport terminals and aftershave. There was a fresh edge of stubble on his jaw now, something deliberate about it. When he brushed past me in the hall, our shoulders touched, and I felt it. Too much, too clearly. I told myself it was just stress, that I was imagining it. But I felt it again at dinner, when he sat across from me and his foot touched mine under the table, and didn't move. Neither did I. James was already half asleep, wine glass dangling from limp fingers. Aaron barely looked at him, just picked at his food and kept glancing toward the back door like he was already planning his escape. I watched them both, and the ache in my chest came back, the one that always reminded me how much I used to try. After dinner, James passed out in the armchair. Aaron and I cleaned up quietly. I rinsed, he dried. Then he said, "Is he always like this now?" I hesitated. "It's been worse lately." He nodded. "You don't have to lie for him." I didn't answer, just handed him a plate. His fingers brushed mine, and this time, he didn't let go right away. He looked up at me, eyes calm, searching. "He doesn't see you," he said. "He's been through a lot," I replied. Aaron gave a short, bitter laugh. "And you're still here, holding the pieces together." "That's what commitment is," I said, though I barely believed it. He shook his head. "No, that's what resignation looks like." He turned off the faucet and moved past me, his hand brushing the small of my back, just for a moment. But it was enough to burn. That night I lay in bed beside someone who felt like a stranger. But I was wide awake, body electric, mind racing, still hearing Aaron's voice, still feeling the ghost of his hand. Around 2 a.m. I heard the creak of floorboards outside my room. A pause, then nothing. He didn't knock, didn't open the door. But I knew he was there, and somehow that was worse. Because we hadn't done anything, not yet. But we both knew we wanted to. To hide the frustration in my voice, I busied myself at the counter. Behind me, Aaron grinned without turning around. "Are you complaining?" I didn't answer. My eyes dropped for just a second, just long enough to catch the line of his back, the way water traced his spine before vanishing beneath the edge of the towel. He poured himself a mug of coffee, leaned against the opposite counter, and studied me quietly. "You always get this tense around me, or am I just special?" "You're not special," I muttered. "You're inappropriate." He smirked. "That's not a no." I moved past him, trying to keep my pulse in check. "Put on something before someone sees you like this." He sipped, calm as ever. "No one's coming down." He was already 3 glasses in before I got out of the shower. That shut me up. I stood by the sink, fingers clenched around the rim, grounding myself. I could feel his gaze still on me, the air stretching, charged with something I didn't want to name. Eventually, he walked out. I watched him through the window, shirtless now, gym shorts clinging to him as he moved slowly through a series of deliberate stretches in the backyard. It felt like a performance, and I hated how much it worked. Later that afternoon, James was passed out on the couch again. The TV flickered against the walls while his wineglass hung loosely in his hand. I draped a blanket over him, more out of routine than care, and turned to see Aaron at the foot of the stairs. His arms were crossed. His eyes met mine, steady. "You ever think about leaving?" "I made promises," I said. He scoffed. "To someone who doesn't even know you're still here." I didn't answer. "You still love him?" he asked, but not like a question, more like a test. "That's not the point." He stepped closer into the kitchen, letting his fingers trail along the wood grain of the counter. "Then what is? You think staying makes you noble? That clinging to something broken makes you loyal?" "Stop," I said. He leaned forward. "You already crossed that line, didn't you?" "I never touched you," I snapped. He tilted his head, studying me. "Maybe not, but you've thought about it." I didn't deny it. I couldn't. The kitchen felt too small, the air too thick. My hands trembled, and I hated that he could see it. I turned and walked out to the garage. I stayed out there a while, sorting tools, wiping down dust, pretending I was fixing something, anything, trying to outrun what was building inside me. But he followed. I didn't hear him come in, just looked up, and there he was, leaning in the doorway, shirtless again, chest faintly damp from the heat, arms folded. "You used to make stuff out here," he said. "Before everything got too heavy," I said. "You were happier then." "She's still his partner," I muttered. "Yeah," he replied, "and I still see what he's done to you." He stepped closer, slow, unhurried. I could feel the warmth of him behind me, his breath near my neck. He picked up a carving chisel from the bench, turned it slowly in his hand. "Strong hands," he murmured. I turned sharply, stepping away. "Don't." He didn't flinch. "Why not?" "Because you don't know what you're doing." "I think I do," he said gently, "and I think you want me to." I didn't answer, just left the garage, without a word. That night, I stood outside his bedroom door. It was cracked slightly, the hallway behind me dark and still. He was lying on his bed in nothing but briefs, one arm tucked behind his head, earbuds in, gaze fixed on the ceiling. And when he noticed me there, he didn't flinch. Didn't cover up, he just watched. Calm. Waiting. I didn't go in, but I didn't walk away fast enough either. That image followed me back to bed, into my dreams, into the part of me I was still pretending didn't exist. And when I woke up, sweating, shaken, I knew next time I wouldn't walk away. And that terrified me. For the next 2 days, Aaron said nothing. No flirting, no glances, no suggestive comments. He was quiet, focused, still. But the tension didn't fade. It thickened. He moved through the house like a lit fuse, calm, patient, waiting to see if I'd strike the match. It lived in the way he stood close at the sink, how his knee brushed mine under the dinner table and didn't move. James barely noticed. The house was quieter now, slower, like everything inside had been placed under glass. One evening, after James had passed out early, Aaron and I sat in the living room with something playing on the TV, something neither of us were really watching. I sat in the armchair. He stretched across the couch, one leg bent lazily over the edge. "You know what's funny?" he asked suddenly. I glanced at him. "What?" He didn't look at me, just kept watching the screen. "You keep pretending this place isn't falling apart, but you're the only one holding it up." "I'm doing what I can." "That's not living," he said. "That's just surviving." He reached behind his head, leading down. I looked away, too fast. And he caught it. He sat up, and for a moment, the silence between us said more than either of us dared to. "Are you really going to keep pretending?" he asked, voice low. "Pretending what?" I replied, though we both knew. "That you don't want this," he said, "that you haven't wanted it for weeks." I stood, trying to push down the heat rising in my chest. "I'm going to bed." But he stood up too, fast, cutting off my path. "You're not fooling anyone anymore, Jonas." "Caleb." He stepped closer. I could smell him. Clean skin, faint soap, and something charged just beneath the surface. "Tell me to stop," he whispered. I looked him in the eye. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. He leaned in. His lips brushed my jaw. Not a kiss, just a breath, just enough. and then he was gone. He left the room. I stood there, fists clenched, heart pounding. I didn't sleep. Not because I was afraid of what might happen, but because I knew exactly what would. The next afternoon, I came back from the store and found Caleb in the kitchen. Marianne's keys were on the counter, but she was nowhere in sight. "She's upstairs," he said. "Out cold. Said she had a headache." He was shirtless again, gym shorts low on his hips, sweat still clinging to his collarbone. "Went for a run," he added casually, like he felt the need to explain the look on my face. I moved past him toward the fridge, brushing his shoulder. He didn't move. "You're going to get hurt," I said. He leaned against the island. "So are you." When I turned to face him, there was no teasing, no smirk, just that look, deep, unresolved, and impossible to ignore. "I want you," he said. And something in me gave way. I stepped toward him, kissed him hard. His breath caught, and he answered instantly, arms sliding around my neck, pulling me closer. My hands found his waist, his back, holding him like I'd been waiting to do it for years. We kissed like the world might crack beneath us, like it didn't matter who was upstairs or what came after. I broke the kiss first, breathless, forehead pressed against his. "This is a mistake," I whispered. "I don't care. We'll regret it. I'd regret not doing it more." We stood like that, foreheads touching, breathing each other in. His hand came up, fingers brushing the edge of my jaw. "Tonight," he whispered. "Let her drink, let her sleep. I'll come to you." He kissed me again, slower this time. A promise. And when he pulled back, there were no more questions in his eyes, just the answer he already knew. The wine glass hit the floor just after 10. A soft thud, a splash, then silence. I didn't clean it up. Marianne was already curled into the recliner, wine bottle still nestled against her side. I lay in bed upstairs, staring at the ceiling. My heart wasn't racing. It was waiting. The hallway light flicked on after 11. I saw it under the door. Soft footsteps. Then quiet. The doorknob turned, clicked, locked. I didn't move, didn't speak. Caleb stepped into the room, barefoot, shirtless, wearing nothing but low-hanging sweats and that look I couldn't ignore anymore. That quiet, focused certainty. He stopped beside the bed. "I told you I'd come," he said. "I thought maybe you'd change your mind." I didn't. I sat up slowly. The sheet slipped from my chest. We didn't say anything else. We didn't have to. He climbed onto the bed, not hesitant, not unsure, like someone stepping into what they already knew belonged to them. He knelt over me, palms resting beside my shoulders, his face close. His voice broke the silence. "I've wanted this since the day I came back." "This is still a mistake," I whispered. "Then don't stop me." And I didn't. I kissed him again, deep and desperate, like everything I'd been holding back cracked open all at once. His fingers threaded into my hair, pulling me close. My hand slid down his side. There was no rush, no frenzy. Just the kind of touch that said, "I see you." The kind that whispered, "Finally." I held him close, and this time I didn't let go. Breathless, exposed, in every possible way, he curled against my chest, his legs tangled with mine, one hand resting gently on my stomach, like letting go wasn't even an option. Neither of us spoke. Not at first. Then, in a whisper, "So, what now?" "I don't know," I said honestly. I kissed the top of his head. I let him stay, because in that moment, with his heartbeat pressed against mine and the house silent around us, I had never felt more seen. We lay there in the heat and the quiet, the air still laced with sweat and something heavier, truth. But he wasn't done. Caleb shifted beside me, fingers sliding down my chest, eyes searching mine. "You still want me?" he asked, his voice rough with something between hope and certainty. "I can feel it." I didn't answer in time. He leaned down, kissing my collarbone, then lower, leaving a trail across my skin. Every touch was softer now, intentional, like he was learning me piece by piece, not just my body but everything underneath. My breath caught, hands gripping the sheets. I didn't stop him. I couldn't. It wasn't fast, it wasn't wild. It was slow and quiet and real. When it ended, I was shaking, not from release, but from the way he looked at me. Like I wasn't just someone he wanted, like I was someone he chose. He crawled back up, kissed me, and curled back into my side. His fingers moved gently over my skin. "I could stay like this forever," he whispered. And in that moment, with him warm against me in the dark, I almost believed it was possible. Morning didn't hit like regret, not at first. It arrived slowly, like light bleeding through the blinds. Caleb was still there, arm across my chest, breath warm and even. It was unsettling how natural it felt, how easy it was to pretend this was simple, but it wasn't. When the sun got too high to ignore, I eased out of bed. He stirred, but didn't wake. I stood still, just watching him, his bare back rising and falling, lips slightly parted in sleep. The faint trace of my touch still visible on his skin. I didn't want to leave the room, but I did. I pulled on sweatpants, grabbed a hoodie, and stepped into the hallway. The house was silent. Marianne was still passed out on the couch, the empty bottle lying on its side like a warning. Her mouth hung open, arm draped over the edge of the recliner. I watched her for a long time, trying to remember the last time she'd looked at me with anything close to love. When I returned upstairs, Caleb was sitting on the edge of the bed, pulling on his shirt. "You left," he said, not accusing, just stating it. "I needed air," I said. He nodded. "Me too." The silence returned. We didn't say what we both knew, what we'd done, what it meant.
"You think she knows?"
I shook my head. "No, not yet." He looked at me for a long time. "But you're thinking about what happens if she does." I didn't answer, because yes, I was. Not just what might happen, but what already had. That night hadn't been just a release. It hadn't been just a mistake. It meant something. And now, every glance, every silence between us, carried the weight of it. Later, we sat at the kitchen table pretending to be normal. Marianne had dragged herself upright before noon, groggy and hollow-eyed, stumbling between the fridge and the medicine cabinet. "You two look like hell," she muttered, swallowing aspirin and water in one long motion. "Stay up talking all night?" Caleb's eyes flicked toward mine, brief, unreadable. "Something like that," he said. I tried to eat toast, tried to keep my hands steady on the mug. But under the table, I felt his foot brush mine, then stay there. I pulled away, too late. Marianne didn't notice. That afternoon, Caleb took the car and didn't say where he was going. I tried to read, but every word blurred. I couldn't stop thinking about how he'd looked, after, curled against me, soft and quiet, and something I didn't know how to hold without breaking it. Around 5, I found him in the garage, pacing, shirtless again. I didn't know if that was still intentional or just who he was. "I can't stop thinking about last night," he said, without turning. "I know." He finally looked at me. "I've never done that before," he said. "Not with a guy." I blinked. "You haven't?" He shook his head. "Thought about it, dreamed about it, but never acted on it." He paused, "And now I have." I stepped closer. "Now it's real." He nodded, "And I don't know what to do with that." We stood there, sunlight pouring through the garage window, dust floating between us. "You said it was a mistake," he said quietly, "but it didn't feel like one." "It didn't," I admitted, "but that doesn't make it any less dangerous." He stepped closer. We were inches apart now. "I don't want it to stop." I looked at him, so young, so open it made my chest ache. "But it has to," I said. He leaned in, voice breaking. "Then why do you still look at me like that?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. So he kissed me. Quick. Fierce. His fists clutched at my hoodie. I kissed him back, until I had to pull away. "Don't," I breathed. "Please." His eyes searched mine. "You want me to pretend it didn't happen?" "I want you to be okay." He stepped back, jaw clenched, and I didn't know what to say to stop him from walking away. His fists clenched. "And what about you?" he said. But he didn't wait for an answer. He walked out, slamming the side door behind him, and left me standing in the middle of a life I didn't know how to hold together anymore. I didn't see Caleb for the rest of that night. After the door snapped shut, the silence that followed was suffocating. I waited for something, footsteps, the car starting, anything that meant finality, but all I got was stillness. Just the low hum of the refrigerator, the dull ring of my heartbeat, and the guilt crawling slow and heavy up the back of my neck. I stayed in the kitchen far longer than I needed to, washed dishes that were already clean, opened drawers just to close them again. When I finally climbed the stairs, the hallway felt impossibly long. His bedroom door was open, but the room was empty. He was gone. Marianne was already passed out in bed, mumbling something half-formed when I slipped in beside her. I didn't respond. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling fan spinning shadows across the room, replaying everything. The feel of Caleb's breath, the sound of his voice, the weight of what we couldn't take back. I remembered how he looked afterward, tangled in the sheets like he belonged there, but he'd left, and I didn't know if he was coming back. By morning, the room was still empty. His phone went straight to voicemail. I told myself maybe he just needed space. Maybe we both did. It wasn't until almost noon that I heard the door open. He walked in wearing the same hoodie from the night before. Eyes red-rimmed, jaw set. Like he'd spent all night trying to outrun something and lost. "Where were you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. "Jake's," he muttered, not meeting my eyes. Marianne shuffled into the kitchen, groggy and pale. "You could have said something," she slurred. "You didn't even text." "Didn't want to wake you," he said, still staring at the floor. That was it. No excuse, no emotion, just a lie, dropped into the room like it meant nothing. He avoided me all day. Every time we passed each other in the hallway, he kept his gaze low, his shoulders drawn in. I wanted to grab him, shake him, scream, "What are we doing?" But I couldn't. Not with her in the house. Not with everything still wrapped so tightly around my chest I could barely breathe. Later that night, after Marianne disappeared into the bathroom with another bottle, I knocked on his door. No answer. I knocked again. Nothing. So I opened it. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, staring down like he expected the floor to swallow him whole. "You really gonna pretend I'm not here?" I asked. He didn't look up. "Don't you ever feel like you're drowning in this house?" I stepped inside slowly. Every single day. That made him glance up. His eyes were red, not from tears, but from holding them in too long. He let out a breath. I thought it would feel better after, once I had you. I thought it would fix the tension." His voice cracked. But it didn't. It made it worse. I nodded, heart sinking. "Yeah, me too." I sat down across from him. Our knees nearly touched. But we didn't. He rubbed both hands down his face. "It didn't feel wrong, Jonas. That's the worst part. It felt real. And now you don't know what to do with it." He looked up again, searching. "Do you regret it?" I wanted to say yes, to lie for both our sakes. But I couldn't. "I don't think I can," he whispered. "But I hate that I don't." That hit harder than I expected. Because I didn't regret it either. And I hated myself for that too. "You think we ruined everything?" he asked. "I think it was already ruined," I said quietly. "We just stopped pretending." We sat in silence, the kind that stretches thin and sharp. The window was cracked open. The hum of summer crickets floated in. It felt too peaceful for what we were carrying. Finally, he stood and walked toward the door, then paused. "If I could go back," he said, voice low, "I don't think I'd stop it, not even if I knew what it would do to me." I looked at him. Something twisted hard in my chest. Me neither. He didn't come back. He just nodded, opened the door, and left. That night, the pillow beside me still held the shape of him. The sheets still carried the echo of his warmth. And I lay there wondering how easy it would be to let him back in, if he knocked just once. But he didn't, and maybe that was the only right thing either of us had done. Still, my fingers traced the space he left behind, and I couldn't help but wonder, what do you do when the only thing that makes you feel alive is the one thing that could destroy you? Because some lines don't disappear. They stay etched, in the shape of his hands, the sound of his voice, and the part of you that still wants to open the door. Weeks passed. Life fell back into place, at least on the surface. Marianne kept drinking. Some days she didn't remember getting out of bed. Caleb went back to school early. Said something vague about getting ahead on assignments. He didn't hug me goodbye, didn't meet my eyes, just tossed his duffel in the back seat and drove off like the driveway was on fire. And me? I went back to pretending the house didn't feel quieter now, that I didn't pause every time I passed his bedroom door, that I didn't stare at my phone at midnight, his name glowing on the screen, wondering if maybe, just maybe, he was lying in bed too, thinking of me, the way I thought about him. He didn't text, not once, and I told myself that was good, that it meant we could move on, that maybe he'd forget what it felt like to fall asleep in my arms, or how I whispered his name into the back of his neck just before everything fell apart. But I hadn't forgotten. I couldn't. Every corner of this house still held pieces of him. Every creak in the floor, every dent in the pillow, every quiet moment that hit me like a wave, his fingers on my skin, the press of his mouth, the way he looked at me that night like I was the only thing keeping him from breaking. 2 weeks later, I found one of his hoodies folded in the laundry room. I didn't wash it. I held it to my face and breathed in what faint trace of him was left. And for a moment, I let myself ache. Not just for what we did, but for everything it meant. For the closeness, for the heat, for the way he saw me. Really saw me. I didn't get that from anyone else. Not even from Marianne. Not anymore. One night, I came home late from work. The porch light was on. A note sat on the table. Marianne was gone again, out with friends who drank like she did. I poured myself a drink, sat on the couch, and let the silence settle in around me. Then my phone buzzed. It was Caleb. No greeting, no lead-in, just, "I still see you in my dreams." I stared at the screen for a long time, then typed back, "Me too." He didn't reply, but I didn't delete the message either, because even though the house was quiet now and the bed cold, what we had shared wasn't gone. It was just buried, waiting. I told myself I wouldn't hear from him again, that what happened between us had been sealed away for good. But the moment his words lit up my screen, I knew the truth. It wasn't over, it had just gone quiet. And now that I'd answered, maybe it never really ended at all, because some stories don't fade when the door closes. Some stories begin with a message you weren't ready for, but wanted more than anything. So subscribe.